For my 19th birthday, my grandparents gifted me a dream trip, but my parents made me give it to my sister, who then caused an accident en route. My 19th birthday was 2 weeks ago, and I'm still reeling from what happened. My grandparents, bless their hearts, gifted me a trip to Rome, complete with plane tickets and a substantial expense check. They handed me a beautiful envelope with the tickets, and I almost burst into tears. Rome, the place I had wanted to visit since I was a child, was finally within reach. But then my folks stepped in. They decided the trip would be more appropriate for my older sister, Amelia. She's 23, the golden child who can't do anything wrong. Apparently, since she is studying architecture, Rome would be an excellent opportunity for her to visit all of the famous buildings. I tried to reason with them. I plan to major in history, and Rome is historically significant. Furthermore, Amelia had the same opportunity when she turned 18. My grandparents had given her the same trip, but she accepted the money instead. Now it was my turn, and I wasn't going to give up. But the airline won't let us transfer the tickets, I told them. It's against their policy. My parents dismissed it as a small annoyance that might be easily resolved. Don't worry about that, Anna, they said. We'll figure it out. Figure it out ended up wearing me down. The disputes lasted for days. They began with, Amelia needs this for her resume, then moved on to you have plenty of time to travel later, and eventually nailed me with, we don't want this opportunity to go to waste. That last one hurt, as if they were implying I wouldn't enjoy it as much as Amelia would. I eventually broke down. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't take the struggle any longer. I told them they could do whatever they pleased with the tickets. At least I still had my check, which was a tiny consolation. I was used to being the less popular child. It came with benefits such as low expectations and a good dose of cynicism. But here's the kicker. They were able to get the ticket moved. I'm not sure how, given that the airline's policy was rather clear, but they did. Amelia grabbed my boarding pass yesterday, the day I was due to fly to Rome. A few hours later, we received a call from the police. Amelia had been in an accident on her way to the airport. She had grabbed the taxi driver's steering wheel, believing he was driving the wrong way. Yeah, she assumed she understood more than the person who drives for a living. The automobile crashed. Amelia escaped with a few scratches, but the cab driver was not so fortunate. He ended up with a fractured arm and a nasty gash on his forehead while pressing charges. My folks were freaking out. They would have to use their funds to settle with the driver and keep Amelia out of court. When I learned the news, I snapped. This is karma, I blurted. This is what you get for stealing my trip. It wasn't the most sensitive thing to say, but I hadn't been thinking straight. My folks were horrified. Anna, how could you say that? Your sister could have been killed. I tried to apologize, but the harm was already done. They accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate, along with other common allegations. It was infuriating. They were the selfish ones, taking my ideal trip to cater to Amelia. That's when I realized, why was I putting up with this? Why was I sacrificing my happiness for a family who did not appreciate me? Screw it, I thought. If they're going to dislike me, I might as well give them a valid cause. I got a taxi and went to the hospital. On the way, I made a decision. I would not let them win. I had my grandparents' check, my passport, and a strong desire to take charge of my life. At the hospital, I discovered my parents and Amelia on the same floor as the injured taxi driver. Amelia was still trying to convince the cops that the accident was not her fault. I didn't care. I walked up to her and requested the boarding permit. She looked at me as if I was insane, so I reached into her purse and took it myself. Then I ran, as if a band of wolves were chasing me. I rushed into a cab and instructed the driver to take me to the airport. I made it barely in time. I boarded the plane, heart racing, and did not look back. I did not check my phone till I arrived in Rome. My family was losing their minds, as one could imagine. My parents left a series of messages calling me every name in the book. They claimed I was callous, that I should have been there for Amelia, and that I was ashamed of the family. Amelia sent even harsher messages. She accused me of stealing her trip, being envious, and destroying her life. Apparently, my parents were going to have to spend all of their savings to pay off the taxi driver, and it was all my fault. Yeah, right, as if it wasn't her fault to seize the steering wheel in the first place. The shame gnawed at me for a while. Perhaps I should have remained. Perhaps I should have apologized. But then I remembered all those years of being disregarded and treated as second best. I remember how they looked at me when they said they didn't want the vacation to be a waste. I deserved it. I deserved to do something for myself, to prioritize my needs. And Rome? It exceeded all of my expectations. The history, the art, the food, it was all magical. I spent my days exploring ancient ruins, admiring artworks, and eating my weight in spaghetti. I felt completely free for the first time in my life. I wasn't Anna, the overlooked daughter. I was just Anna, and it felt great. After a few wonderful days in Rome, I finally mustered the confidence to phone my grandparents. I told them everything, years of favoritism, disputes about the trip, the accident, and the escape. I poured out my emotions, tears flowing down my cheeks. They were stunned. They had no idea how horribly my parents had mistreated me. They were angry, upset, and, above all, concerned. My grandmother said, "Anna, you did the right thing," her voice full with emotion. "You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved." They invited me to come live with them when I returned. They assured me that they would take care of me and that I did not need to worry about anything. For the first time in my life, I felt really seen and understood. When I returned from Rome, I went directly to their residence. They had already moved all of my belongings out of my parents' home. The guest room was ready for me, with clean linens and a vase of my favorite flowers on the nightstand. It felt like coming home. My grandparents told me that they had challenged my parents. They had put it all out and expressed their disappointment with their behavior. My parents, unsurprisingly, disputed everything. They claimed I was exaggerating and that I was simply jealous of Amelia. They even had the audacity to claim I was selfish for abandoning them amid a family crisis. But my grandparents saw straight through them. They severed relations with my parents and stated that they had no more desire to interact with them. It was a terrible decision, but they knew it was the correct one. I haven't communicated with my parents or Amelia since. I blocked their phone numbers and removed their texts. I don't need that much negativity in my life. Life with my grandparents is calm. They treat me with love and respect. They urge me to follow my aspirations. They make me feel like I belong. I'm entering college in the fall, and my grandparents are covering all of my expenses, including tuition, books, and a new laptop. They claim they want to give me the possibilities I've been denied for so long. I still think about my parents. I wonder whether they regret what they did and if they ever think about me. But then I remember the freedom and love I now have in my life, and I realize I made the correct decision. I'm finally free. Free of expectations, comparisons, and the continual sense of not being good enough. I'm free to be myself and pursue my own path, which I understand is the best gift of all. It has been a couple years since I left my parents' place. I'm thriving in college, making new friends and pursuing new interests. My grandparents are my rock and biggest supports. They're getting older, yet they're still full of energy and love. I heard through the grapevine that my folks are struggling. They had to remortgage their home to pay for the taxi driver's lawsuit. Amelia is working, but her salary is insufficient to cover their expenses. They are caught in a cycle of debt and resentment. I do not feel sorry for them. They made their decisions, and now they must live with the consequences. I'm moving forward. I'm embracing my new life and family. I'm finally living the life I was destined to live, and it's stunning. Now to the next story, story 2. I moved in with my sister and her husband, but his behavior became controlling and inappropriate, peaking when I mentioned I was dating someone. I'm Ashley, 17F. My sister Jess, 25F, and her husband Jake, 34M, have been married for 2 years. They met when she first started college and have been together ever since. As far as I know, they've never had an issue, and whenever they came around to visit, they appeared to have the perfect connection. My parents never really made the best decisions in life, so my sister practically raised me herself. I'm quite grateful to her for this, and I know she had to make numerous sacrifices to be able to do so. When she was in college, I called her at least 3 times a week to check in and see how she was doing. She'd chat about school, job, and her plans. Then she'd talk about Jake. She described him so well that it raised my own expectations of love. For example, she'd tell me about all the flowers she received, the lovely dates she went on, and how he treated her so well. After living with my parents, who should have divorced a long time ago, I didn't have a clear idea of what a good partnership looked like. So I became fairly close to Jess and Jake. Growing up, my sister and I were always together. So, when Mother introduced me to Jake, it felt like I had finally found an elder brother. Jess and Jake eventually moved in together, became engaged, and are now married. My parents kicked me out because I refused to pay the rent. I work at a luxury horse ranch, and there are a few perks. They'll let you practice on their horses. They give free lessons with a riding instructor, and overall, I just adore my job. I did not want to leave it. However, my pay isn't great, and for the amount my parents were asking for, I'd have to have a second job or quit to find one that pays well. so I found myself living with Jess and Jake. Jake works from home, so unless he's out with Jess or at the gym, he's at home. He makes enough money doing whatever he does. I'm not sure what he does, but Jess told me it's his family's firm, so that explains it. Recently, they approached me and informed me that they were expecting. Obviously, I was really excited for them, but my sister had a few miscarriages in the past, so we had to be extra cautious with her. Even in its early stages, my sister's pregnancy has proven to be extremely difficult, making it high risk. Hopefully, this is enough to give you a good picture of what's happening. My parents had an old automobile that I was allowed to drive to job and school, but once I was kicked out, I couldn't use it. This was disappointing because I had always enjoyed the independence that having a car provided. But whatever, I'll get over it. Jake insisted on taking me to school in the morning and then driving me to and from work. I was incredibly glad for this because it saved me from having to take the bus or walk. Jake would return home from the gym, shower, grab me a Starbucks, and drop me off at school. In the afternoon, he would pick me up at school and drive me to work. Jake was generally waiting outside or on his way by the conclusion of my shift. It was a huge assistance, and I was grateful that he took so much time out of his day to assist me. In the drive, we'd wind up conversing and having chats about Jess or the baby's plans. But he was often asking if I was dating or had a crush on somebody. He'd wink and say things like, "You're so stunning, it's impossible. There must be something you're hiding from me. Come on, tell me. You know I can keep a secret, so tell me." I mean, there was a guy, I will give him that, but it was too early to discuss. This resulted in my being unclear because I didn't want to lie to him. I'd basically just play coy and avoid answering any of his queries with too detailed an answer, as I didn't want to jinx myself. Finally, Alex, 19 million, the boy I was talking to, asked me out on a date. His family owned the ranch where I worked, so we spent a lot of time together while I was at work. Usually, during my shifts, he would come and assist me, or we'd go riding together. I was quite excited, and on my way home from work, I told Jake about it. He suddenly became cold. I'm not sure how else to explain it, but the familial warmth was gone. He began asking a lot of questions, very matter-of-factly, and I responded because I assumed it was just the protective older sibling thing. I figured he'd need some time to adjust. But when I informed him that Alex and I had been chatting for about a month, he freaked out and became very upset. I burst into tears as he began calling me a liar and accusing me of concealing this information from him. The fact that he literally said, "What about us?" has stuck with me ever since. That has left me completely perplexed because, what does he even mean? The worst part is that, because of how he acted, I'm overthinking everything that has happened since I moved in with them. Jake's house had a pool in the backyard, and I used to go there to swim or just lie out and tan. However, I've realized that whenever I went for a swim or tried to sunbathe, Jake would find an excuse to come and do anything outside. He'd fire up the grill, mow the lawn, or do anything else around the yard. I would have the impression that I was being observed. He even started swimming with me a few times, but I assumed he was simply trying to get in shape like me. After I came out of the pool, I'd go take a shower in the corridor. Jake and Jess have their own bathroom, which is connected to the master bedroom. After I finished my shower, I went to my room, changed, and went to bed. Jake would sometimes wait for me in the little space between the corridor and my room, even if I was only wearing a towel. He would say, "Good night," and I would respond. But now I'm wondering whether there was another motive behind it. I don't want to bring these worries up with my sister because she's been so delicate lately. This pregnancy is definitely hitting her hard, and I don't want to say anything because it could harm her or the kid. I just want to know if I'm overthinking things. More information. I didn't even contemplate the possibility that my sister would support him over mine. But after reading everything in the comments, I think I should start gathering evidence. Also, I will do my best to change the relationship between him and me without raising red flags. I'm more than prepared to inform my sister if I believe there is an urgent danger, but as I previously stated, I don't believe he is the type of guy who poses an actual concern. To be cautious, I'd rather wait till she's feeling better before trying to break the news to her. I want to be cautious since my sister could be gravely hurt, not just emotionally, but also due to pregnancy dangers. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but the way he flew off the handle was terrifying. I believe he's simply been under too much stress. My sister's pregnancy is actually high risk, so he's had to care for her far more than usual. He's probably just afraid about what will happen to her. However, even if I give him the benefit of the doubt, I should set certain boundaries. When he had that outburst, it truly worried me, and I felt unsafe. I know I'll never be able to physically overcome him, so I'm going to ask a few of my friends if they'd want to carpool with me. I will also contact Alex to see if he can give me a lift to and from work. Worst case scenario, I'll locate a job I can walk to. In the meantime, I'll absolutely strive to highlight my brotherly relationship with him. I'm going to be friendly since I don't feel compelled to be nasty or create an aggressive environment. Aside from that, I'll take steps to see if I can improve my circumstances. Is my sister's spouse acting strangely, or am I overthinking? First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left a comment on my last post with suggestions. After reading all of the comments last night, I recognize that I am no longer secure in this environment and will make changes starting today. As much as I admire and love Jake, I don't believe the danger is worthwhile. I attempted to establish a conversation with him after posting and received some suggestions simply to see if we could discuss this. But he was still in a nasty attitude, so I simply walked to my room. In the middle of the night, I felt the need to leave the house. I was feeling imprisoned, so I decided to take a trip to my usual smoking area to clear my mind. I wasn't even there for 15 minutes before Jake texted me, "Where are you?" Then my phone started blowing up. He kept calling. I'm not sure how to convey my fear. I just wanted to be left alone. I eventually took up the phone, which resulted in a storm of insults. Apparently, I am a effing princess who always gets her way, and deserve to be treated like the expletive I am. Then he told me to provide him my location, which was definitely not going to happen. I encouraged him to take a pause and reflect on what he had just said to me. After that, I contacted Alex, who happily answered, and I told everything to him. I'm not sure how much he comprehended at first, given that I was practically shaking and crying so hard. However, he ended up going over to my location and asking a few more questions about the scenario while attempting to calm me down. I was finally able to relax and tell him everything again, this time with a clearer mind. Throughout this, my phone was constantly ringing. Assuming it was Jake, I just let the calls continue. Eventually, I realized it was my sister's phone calling me. Despite the fact that I knew Jake may be on the other end, I answered the phone. Jake was the one who hurled another barrage of invective at me, loud enough for Alex to hear. Alex took the phone from my hand, ordered Jake to shut the fussing up and that I was safe, and then hung up. After that, Alex assured me that everything would be fine and that I need not worry. He ended up taking me all the way to the ranch and informing his folks about what had transpired in my new circumstances. I'm grateful that they decided to take me in and let me stay in one of their spare rooms in exchange for a little additional work on the farm. After that, I cuddled with Alex and attempted to fall asleep. I ended up not going to school today since I needed to relax. However, after Jake's reaction and the comments I'd been reading entered my mind, I became quite concerned about my sister. I ended up contacting her and happily she answered. It was clear she had been crying. She inquired if I was safe and okay. Jess told me that the night before, she awoke to Jake yelling, which shocked her. She claimed to be still sleeping. She ended up hearing him return to their room and grab her phone off the charger. After that, she heard him ranting again and the front door slamming. Jake had apparently gone out to seek for me, carrying my sister's phone with him. She stated she had no idea what to do and was afraid he might actually hurt me. After approximately an hour, Jake returned home. He was clearly still in a terrible mood, because when she questioned where he had been and what had happened, he blew up at her for questioning him. She said she'd never seen him so angry before. He was literally destroying stuff. After a few minutes, he returned to his car and drove away, but fortunately, he left her phone on the counter. She checked the phone logs and saw every call he had made to me. While Jake was gone, she called a friend to pick her up and then tried to contact me. I was sleeping at the time, but she told me she was afraid Jake had discovered me. She apologized for not being able to protect me and for failing to notice what was happening. Jess wondered why I hadn't told her about Jake's actions. I emphasized that I did not want to worry her out about the pregnancy. We both ended up crying for a long time. Apparently, my parents are allowing her to return home rent-free since they want to help raise their grandchild. If this had been an option in the beginning, none of this would have occurred, but I digress. My sister and I ended up going out to dinner, and I showed her my post. We cried again. She said me she had never been afraid of Jake before, but after witnessing his rage the night before, she was terrified. We both still need to go back to the house to grab our things. We'll contact you eventually and set a day to transfer everything out. My father and Alex will also be present, just in case Jake tries anything. According to my sister, Jake has tried to reach out and apologize numerous times, claiming that he was only concerned about my safety and that I shouldn't be out at night. He didn't realize she could hear exactly what he was yelling at me, so she knows he's lying. Jess informed Jake that she would be filing for divorce, and then hung up. I love my sister and wish her the best in life. I am confident she will heal from this and meet an incredible partner who loves her and only her. In other news, Alex and I are going on a date next week, which makes me quite happy. But, seriously, thank you to the Reddit commentators for making me so stressed out that I wanted to take a smoke break. I believe you may have saved me. I'm not sure what would have happened if I'd stayed in my room that night, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.